Anti-Semitism has been present in societies around the globe since the inception of Judaism and the Jewish people. That's 4 millennia of people discriminating against a race and religion of people that has resulted in death and destruction. And though it has changed in its actions and portrayal in media throughout the last century, the hatred is still very present around the world. In this video, we will examine the effects of anti-Semitism in media, how it is portrayed, and how it has transformed and adapted for modern society. And we will do this mostly through images and visual puns because I didn't have time to do any green screen stuff. Anti-Semitism is ancient, but its first recorded instance is just a blink of an eye ago, back in 270 BCE, with anti-Jewish writings referencing the Egyptians' prejudice towards the Jewish people, which, as you know, famously ended very poorly for the Egyptians. Unfortunately, though, that anti-Semitic writing is probably one of the least significant acts of anti-Semitism that has occurred throughout history. The Jewish people have experienced many banishments and pogroms, which a pogrom is an organized massacre of a particular ethnic group, in particular that of Jews in Russia or Eastern Europe, and of course the Holocaust, not to mention the societal prejudices that they have faced throughout the years. The Jews over the years have had many negative portrayals in media and propaganda to fuel these fires, and these portrayals will be our focus for this exposition. In the early 20th century, in Russia, under the Tsarist regime, anti-Semitism grew among the people. It reached a peak when the Russian secret police forged the notorious Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a document purported to be a transcription of a plan by Jewish elders to achieve global domination. So the Russians thought that the Jews were Dr. Evil. The hoax, with the hoax being the protocols, was shown to be plagiarized from several earlier sources. So it wasn't even original racism, it was like copied racism. It became translated into a number of languages and disseminated internationally in the early part of the 20th century. According to the claims made by its publishers, the protocols are the minutes of a late 19th century meeting where Jewish leaders discussed their goal of global Jewish hegemony. Hegemony? Hegemony. One of those. By subverting the morals of Gentiles and by controlling the press and the world's economies. The Nazis sometimes used the protocols as propaganda against the Jews because they were equally uncreative. It was assigned by some German teachers to be taught as fact and to be read by German school children after the Nazis came to power in 1933, despite having been exposed as fraudulent by the Times of London in 1921. So even though the information was outdated, and also fake, it was still being taught as fact. It is widely still available today in numerous languages, of course it is, in print and on the internet, and to this day still continues to be presented by some proponents as a genuine document, so some idiots are still out here saying that this happened. In this case, the content of hatred has not changed, only the media in which it is contained. The Der Strömer, I don't know how to speak German, was another prominent document that displayed anti-Semitic propaganda. It was a weekly German tabloid format newspaper published by Julius Streicher. I don't even know what that word is either. The Gauleiter? Let's Google that. What's a Gauleiter? A political official governing a district under Nazi rule. Okay, so it was specific to the Nazis. Interesting. It was a weekly German. It was a weekly German tabloid format newspaper published by Julius Streicher, the Gauleiter of Franconia. Franconia, interesting. From 1923 to the end of World War II, with brief suspensions in publication due to legal difficulties. It was a significant part of Nazi propaganda and, of course, was vehemently anti-Semitic. The paper was not an official publication of the Nazi Party, but was published privately by Streicher, and for this reason, the paper did not display the Nazi Party swastika in its logo, but was still heavily promoted by many senior Nazi officials, including Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, or the Schutzstaffel. It was also promoted by Robert Ley, the leader of the German Labor Front, and Max Amann, the proprietor of the Zentrale Verlag, or Central Press. So this means about 80% of the German press in 1942. Not exactly what I would call objective journalism. These officials heavily endorsed the publication, and their statements were often published in the paper. Albert Forster, Gauleiter of Danzig, which is now Gdansk, wrote in 1937, "With pleasure, I say that the Strömer, more than any other weekly or daily newspaper, has made clear to the people in the simple ways of the danger of Jewry. Without Julius Streicher and his Strummer, the importance of a solution to the Jewish question would not be seen as critical as it actually is by many citizens. It is therefore to be hoped that those who want to learn the unvarnished truth about the Jewish question will read the Strummer. After reading that, I now have to go brush my teeth to clean out my mouth. The Strummer did face a lot of political backlash during this time, and it was actually only through Hitler's intervention that the Streicher was spared any punishment, because, Hitler was famous for not liking Jews. However, even though it faced legal and political backlash, the German public still highly favored the tabloid, since it provided entertainment through anti-Semitic cartoons, comics, and jokes. Adolf Hitler also published many books full of anti-Semitic content. Mein Kampf, or My Struggle, or My Fight, depending on how you translate it, is a 1925 autobiographical manifesto. The work describes the process by which Hitler became anti-Semitic and outlines his political ideology and future plans for Germany. Volume 1, oh great, there's more than one. Volume 1 of Mein Kampf was published in 1925, and Volume 2 in 1926. The Zweites Buch was published in English as Hitler's Secret Book, and later as Hitler's Second Book, and it is an unedited transcript of Adolf Hitler's thoughts on foreign policy written in 1928. There are a number of similarities and differences between Zweites Buch and Mein Kampf. As in Mein Kampf, Hitler declares that the Jews were his eternal and most dangerous opponents. Throughout the next 10 years, anti-Semitic propaganda slowly transformed from print to film. The Jude Sub was a 1940 German Nazi propaganda film produced by Terrafilm at the behest of Joseph Goebbels, and is still considered one of the most anti-Semitic films of all time. It explores topics that depict Jews in disguise, how Jewish people have racially polluted the world, as well as violent scenes depicting assaults against many Jewish people. And even the climax of the film is rape. So, The Eternal Jew is a 1940 anti-Jewish German Nazi propaganda film presented as a documentary. The film touches on themes like Jews as uncivilized and parasitic people, the Jews as manipulative, and as abnormal and depraved. Vienna 1910 is a 1943 German biographical film directed by Emmerich Walter Emo, starring Rudolf Forster, Heinrich George, and Lil Dagobert. He's not a rapper, I don't think. I think Lil is his first name. Yeah? Okay. It is based on the life of Mayor Vienna Karl Lueger, and its anti-Semitic content led to it being banned by the Allied occupation forces following the Second World War. Vom Baulen das an der Blätter hat gewollt, my German is impeccable, translates to Of the Little Tree Which Wished for Different Leaves, is a short anti-Semitic propaganda cartoon published in 1940 in the Nazi movie studio Zeichenfilm GmbH, or GmbH. The movie depicts a golden tree inhabited by little birds, whose leaves, all but one, are stolen by a caricature of a Jewish man. This video became so popular that it was even played at many Hitler Youth rallies, and was sometimes even played as an ad on late-night television. Many people think that anti-Semitism has faded over the years, but today there are actually several accounts of anti-Semitic acts, remarks, and publications, especially in the United Kingdom, so good job, UK, you guys are clearly doing great. Brexit, woo! In 2018, British politics recorded anti-Semitism as a major problem, so much so in fact that nearly a third of Jewish people in the UK said that they are thinking of emigrating out of fear for their safety. 4 out of 5 believe that anti-Semitism is a major problem in British politics. The report from EU's Agency on Fundamental Rights has found anti-Semitic hatred and discrimination on the rise across Europe, with attitudes in France, Germany, what a surprise, Belgium, Poland, and the UK said to be the most disturbing. 9 out of 10 Jews in Poland have been targeted with anti-Semitism on the internet, and 84% in Belgium have reported having experienced anti-Semitism in their national media. Across 12 countries as a whole, 89% said anti-Semitism is at its worst and most problematic on the internet and social media platforms. Nearly 3 in 4, or 73%, think that hostile behavior towards Jews in public is a very big problem, and 71% believe there is anti-Semitism, or evidence of anti-Semitism in media. The results for the UK were peculiar, however. The survey found that 75% of Jewish people in the UK perceived anti-Semitism to be a big or fairly big problem, from up to 48% in 2012, with 29% having considered emigrating. The poll, though, reported that 84% of Jews surveyed found anti-Semitism, specifically in political life, to be a very big or fairly big problem compared with the 12-country average of 70%. It has also found that 89% of British Jews say anti-Semitism has increased in the last 6 or so years since the survey. The European Commissioner for Justice, Vera Jourova, told The Guardian the results were a dismal setback for the EU that should be taken up as a challenge by the heads of state and government. She urged Jeremy Corbyn, whose Labour Party has battled accusations that it has allowed anti-Semitism to take hold within its ranks, to take heed of the results. The Labour leader himself has come under repeated criticism over the issue when a recording emerged this summer of Corbyn addressing an event in 2013 where he angrily accused a group of British Zionists of having no understanding of English irony. But this isn't the only proof that Corbyn and other Labour MPs are anti-Semitic. Luciana Berger, a member of parliament, shocked the nation when she announced her departure from the country's official opposition, along with 9 other former Labour MPs. The great niece of a post-war era Labour government minister, Berger joined the party at age 15 and was a parliamentary chair of the Jewish Labour movement. Standing at a lectern with several other former Labour MPs, she announced the formation of a new caucus called the Independent Group, established for those disaffected with the growing extremism of the country's 2 other major political parties. Great job, UK. Labour, she said, has become sickeningly institutionally racist under the tenor of its leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Specifically, it was anti-Semitism that drove Berger out. Last April, speaking in the House of Commons, Berger joined several other Jewish female Labour MPs in reading aloud some of the hateful anti-Semitic invective hurled at them by Corbyn's supporters. Berger's courage in speaking out only elicited more attacks, such that she required bodyguards at her own party conference later that year. The allegations forced the EHRC, the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, to launch a probe into the Labour Party. The probe will look into whether Labour had unlawfully discriminated against, harassed, or victimized people because they are Jewish. Specifically, whether unlawful acts had been committed by the party and/or its employees and/or its agents, and whether the party has responded to complaints of unlawful acts in a lawful, efficient, and effective manner. In conclusion, anti-Semitism has been present in societies around the globe since the inception of Judaism. In the early 20th century, it was very prominent in forms of media like books, films, and tabloids that were propelled by the war and Nazi beliefs. Today, it appears to hide behind the flag of the Labour Party and behind the keyboards of the internet, and is slowly beginning to rise throughout Europe once again. We've already seen this before. Let's not let it happen a second time. Cue the meme.
Oh shit, here we go again.
While anti-Semitism has changed by the way it presents itself in media throughout the last century, becoming integrated into the internet, some forms of it, like within political parties, seems to have stayed at least partially the same. And of course, books like Mein Kampf and the prophecies of the Zion thing, still very much, sent around the internet and still purported to be fact, which of course it is not. So don't be fooled, the hatred is still very present. Thank you for listening.